What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined this morning by Daniel Starkand, here to talk a little bit about an upcoming series the Dodgers have starting today against the Texas Rangers. But we're not talking about the team, the Texas Rangers. We're talking about one person in particular, Daniel. World Series NLCS hero Corey Seager returns to Dodger Stadium, kind of. Hamstring tightness means he may or may not play, but he'll be back in the building at least.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble containing my smile right now. Everyone who watches our show knows I'm a big Corey Seager guy. It's a little weird that he hasn't been back yet. Although I will say I was at the All-Star game. I want to say it was in like 2022 when it was at Dodger Stadium. He was back for that. Got a big ovation there. But this is the first time he's coming back as an opposing player. Like you said, he might not play, but he's still going to be in the dugout back at Chavez Ravine, which obviously brings back some great memories.
Yeah, and I imagine Cody Bellinger, when he returned, there was a video made for him. There was a huge ovation. I mean, Corey Seager is at least as popular as Cody Bellinger. Given the heroics that he had in 2020, you could make a case he might be even more popular. So I would be shocked if there isn't some sort of tribute for him, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd say when they're putting that video together, there's a lot of options to choose from when it comes to, big hits, big plays he had.
Yeah, it is funny looking back on Seager. Obviously, he'll forever be a hero because of what he did in the 2020 postseason when the Dodgers won the World Series. At the time, he became the 8th player ever to win both the LCS and World Series MVP. I was looking back on those numbers. In the World Series, he batted 400 with two home runs, 4 doubles, and a stolen base. He got on base 14 times. So I believe he was 8 for 20 with 6 walks, had the most runs scored, drove in 5 runs. He was absolutely insane. That, of course, on the heels of an incredible 2020 series. Is there a memory or a specific moment with Corey Seager that stands out to you, or is it just kind of the extended month that he had down in Arlington?
It's funny because you asked me to kind of come up with one, and when I was thinking, I was kind of just like, I don't know if there's necessarily like one moment that stands out as much as just the entire postseason as a whole. Like he was just as locked in as could be. But I will say I went back and I watched his highlights from that kind of postseason run, and I would say I guess the hit that stood out to me the most. It was in Game 5 against the Braves. The Dodgers were down 3-1 in the series, so they were fighting for their lives at that point. They had to win 3 straight, and they were down 2-0 in that game in the 4th inning. And at that point, I remember watching at the time, and everyone was like, oh, the Dodgers are done. Like, they're showing no fight, no life here. They're down 3-1, about to get eliminated in 5. And Seager came up in the 4th inning against Tyler Matzik, who was one of the Braves' best relievers at the time. He's also a lefty, so it was a left-on-left matchup. And Seager hit a solo homer to straightaway center, and that kind of got things flowing. And then later in the game, he came up again when the Dodgers were up 5-2, and he hits another 2-run homer to kind of put the game out of reach. So I would say that game is kind of what stands out the most, just because the Dodgers were fighting for their lives. And if he doesn't kind of hit that homer to get them going, who knows what happens? They might lose that game. And of course, we're sitting here saying we've never seen the Dodgers win a World Series. So obviously very thankful for Seager for that whole postseason run. But that moment, that game is what kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, 8 home runs in the postseason. It's funny when I look back on 2020 how basically all of the signature moments seem to have actually come in that NLCS. Not all of them, of course, but because of the 3-1 comeback against the Braves, going to a Game 7. Obviously, it's not like the World Series was a foregone conclusion, especially having lost there twice before. But aside from the Blake Snell game, it felt like every other memory I have of that run is basically from the NLCS. So I love that. It's funny, too. Like, I was reflecting as we prepared for this video. I remember when he became a free agent. Obviously, every single one of us loved Corey Seager, would have loved to see him continue as a Dodger. I think the concern that the Dodgers had, rightfully so, was, do we really want to sign this guy to an huge contract in length, given all of his injury history? And it's funny now, Daniel, as he's in his 3rd season with Texas since leaving. Obviously, he wins a World Series in 2023, World Series MVP. It's kind of a fascinating conversation. So he played 151 games in 2022. He missed 31 games last year in 2023 with a hamstring issue. Has missed just a few this year. Has played 57 games, but did have hernia offseason surgery that kind of delayed his start. And that's just 3 years into this long contract. So I'm not, of course, saying like, I don't wish Corey Seager were here. The way I'll phrase it to you is, do you think Andrew Friedman, looking at how the last 2.5 seasons have gone with Corey Seager, do you think he looks at it feeling somewhat vindicated that they didn't extend him? Or given the Dodgers' issues at shortstop, do you think he kind of just wishes they would have spent the money?
I think the easy answer is to say that they wish they would have spent the money. You just mentioned that they really still haven't found a shortstop since then. Obviously, at the time, they had Trey Turner in place, and that's kind of why they were comfortable letting him walk. They still had Trey for one more season. He moved over from second to short. So they were like, all right, we're all good there. But then a year later, he leaves as well, and they haven't really found a shortstop since. So I think the easy answer is to say, yes, they definitely should have paid him. They should have kept him, a homegrown hero around long term and so forth. But as much as it pains me to say this, because I do love Corey Seager, like I don't think the Dodgers necessarily made the wrong decision here. And hear me out on this. You mentioned the injuries, of course. He's a guy who's always kind of had his injury issues, whether that be his arm, his back, his hip, so forth. The fact of the matter is he's a really big shortstop. He's 6'4", 6'5". And I think a lot of people expected that he would have to move off short, eventually. And I think credit to the Rangers, they gave him that big deal to be their shortstop. But I don't think a lot of people expected him to stay at short long term, and that still might not be the case. Like we're only in year 3 of this deal. He's had a few injuries here. Like, in the back half of that deal, he might have to move to first base or third base or whatever the case may be. And on top of that, like, you have to get over the difference of, a Texas contract versus a California contract. And it's not as simple as the Dodgers could have just matched the Rangers offer and then Corey Seager's still a Dodger. Like there's a significant gap in taxes there. And obviously at the end of the day, Corey Seager was a free agent and he had his own decision to make. Like, it's not like the Dodgers, in NBA, there's this thing called restricted free agency where a guy could go out and sign an offer sheet with a team. And if he's a restricted free agent, the team that he's on has the ability to just match it. And then he has to resign. That wasn't the case here. Like Corey Seager had the ability to make his own decision. He's obviously from North Carolina, so kind of southern East Coast part of the country. And maybe, he felt more comfortable going to Texas. And then, to kind of close it out, while the Dodgers didn't give Seager that money, they kind of turned around and they ended up with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani, on top of other guys like, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, and so forth. So it's not like the Dodgers' money hasn't been well spent. And it did give them the flexibility to go out and make those other moves. So even though I do love Corey Seager, I'm going to cheer him, when he's back this week. I hope everyone else does the same because he deserves that. I still think if I could go back and do it all over again, I don't think anything would change because you would have had to offer him probably close to $400 million to compete with that Texas contract.
Yeah, and I'm with you. The Freddie Freeman contract was given out basically in response to Corey Seager leaving. So it felt like, and I know somebody in the comments is going to say like, well, they should just unlimited spend. I think in reality, even though they are spending over $1 billion this offseason, I still think there's a little bit of give and take on you can't just sign everybody to every single contract. And the second thing is like the Corey Seager question isn't going to be answered after 2.5 years. We knew this decision was going to look bad in the first 3 or 4 years. The question was in years 5 through 10, what does his health look like? To his credit, he played 119 games last year, which feels like, oh, injuries got him. He was also a 6.1 wins above replacement guy. So you'd take 6.1 wins over any stretch of time, regardless. And so we love Corey Seager. It's a bummer that he didn't get to finish his career as a Dodger. And yet the way that some of the domino effects have played out, you mentioned Freeman, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, all of these guys are here in part because, of the decision they made with Corey Seager. And to your point, maybe the Dodgers didn't even make a decision. Maybe this was a Corey Seager decision to leave more than anything else. So let us know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear from people your favorite Corey Seager memory and your expectations for how fans are going to treat him. I had a fun conversation with Jorge Castillo yesterday, who used to cover the Dodgers, now covers the Mets and Yankees. We were joking about the difference between Yankees fans and Dodgers fans. They're screaming, chanting at Trent Grisham, "We want Soto." And we were joking about like Dodger fans just tend to not be that harsh. I mean, Chris Taylor might get some boos, but nobody's like chanting "you suck" at the guy while he's up batting for your team. So I imagine the reception for Corey Seager, the 1% of people who decide to boo, like, get out of here. This isn't the place for you, would be my advice. So, so let us know in the comments below. Favorite memory, how you think he's going to be received. We appreciate you all. As always, live post-game show tonight after game 1 of this series between the Dodgers and Rangers. So make sure you check back here on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel. You can check out Daniel's stuff over at Lakers Nation as well. At some point in the next 6 months, they might have a head coach. And so Daniel will be the guy you want to follow at D Starkand for information about that as well. So enjoy the rest of your day, folks. As always, go Dodgers.